Burlesque Stripped Down, episode number 17. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm back. This is Velvet Eau Claire, as always your guide to the ladies and gents behind the tassels, all of their secrets, their saucy, sexy, not so sexy secrets. I am back. Have you missed me? Because I have missed you absolutely terribly. I am calling this season 2. It was a little bit of an unplanned hiatus there, as I've been saying, 2016 kind of knocked me on my ass a little bit. It seems to be a kind of common theme. Maybe you've had that as well. But I am really, really excited to be back because I've really missed kind of this outlet and this connection with people and with other performers and my listeners and everything. So welcome back to those of you who have been loyal listeners. Thank you so much for sticking with me and pressing play once again on this. And welcome to any new listeners. I know we've got a lot of people really interested to hear what's going on for season 2. We're having a lot more big performers that are coming on. So anyone who's coming in from, from hearing about it from the performers that I'm interviewing, welcome. I'm really glad to have you here on Burlesque Stripped Down. Yeah, we go through all the secrets. I try to get to know the real person and share these stories and make these connections that we might not normally make with performers around the world. On Mondays, you can always get our episodes as our interview episodes. So having different performers, I've got a really, really great lineup, have several already pre-recorded and just so excited to start churning these out. And then on Thursdays, I'm going to be doing hot tips episodes. And so those, I'm still kind of finding out like what you guys all want to listen to and like what kind of things you want to hear and how long and things. So sometimes they're a little shorter, 15, 20 minutes, sometimes even shorter than that. We can do like 10 minutes, maybe a real quick, dirty tip. Sometimes they get a little bit longer as I start, kind of pontificating about my views on life, the universe, and everything. So definitely check it out. Those are on Thursdays. Anything ever that we mention in the episodes, you can find over on our website at burlesquestrippeddown.com. And you can, share that with your friends. Of course, we're on social media, not on Twitter very often. Some of you, if you say hi to me on Twitter and I don't respond, that's probably why, because I probably just didn't see it. But over on Facebook, I'm on. And Instagram, you can find me at Velvet Eau Claire. Please do, if you like what you're hearing, share it with your friends. I'd love to get more Burly ears listening in, Burly and Cabaret. After this episode, I will do something a little special. I have an audio submission because over on my website, you can leave me a voicemail. And so I have one that was left by a lovely young lady, young at heart lady who was listening to our episode with the distress dolls, and she wanted to add in her 2 cents. So you'll hear that at the end of the episode today. And I would love to keep getting emails, and I would be happy to emails and voice messages. We'll share those up on these episodes as well. So definitely take a second, head on over to the website, either leave me a voicemail there, or you can email me, velvet@burlesquestrippeddown.com. So that's the quick overview here. Today I have just an absolutely mind-blowing interview. A lot of these upcoming ones are just amazing. I have some, the universe has been sending me some really, really fantastic young ladies to speak with. I'm hoping to get some guys in here too. We've only had, the one, Mr. Jupiter Jove. But today I have Miss Kellita with me. She is a fantastic woman out of San Francisco, and I am so excited to hear to share with you what she has to say. So let me tell you a little bit about Miss Kellita. Kellita is a showgirl, shaman, and carnival queen. She's an ecstatic shimmy shaker who descends from a long line of sassy dancers. She has performed and taught everywhere from Hollywood to Montreal and Paris to Tokyo. Kellita is a five-time finalist at the Burlesque Hall of Fame, and she's been featured in burlesque festivals across North America, both as a performer and a judge. Kellita founded both award-winning dance company Hot Pink Feathers and Hot Pink Feathers Showgirl Academy, and more recently, Showgirl Awakening Life Practice. She's an expert on expressing your truth and beauty through your body, and she has devoted her life to helping women rewire their bodies and their minds to run at a delicious hum. She's catalyzed thousands to discover and reveal their true radiant essence on stage and off. As a little side note, if you are in Paris or even in London, because it's a really short trip there, my troupe, Burlesque Moulin, is hosting Kellita for a workshop called Showgirl Awakening 101. And that is taking place, if you are listening to this when this episode is released, it's taking place this weekend in Paris. So definitely head on over to Burlesque Moulin. I'm speaking French. burlesquemoulin.fr. And that's where you'll be able to find all the information about, it's a whole day, kind of a retreat, really, good for beginners, people who are just not even sure if they want to be performers. They just want to experience, getting more in touch with their body, all the way through more experienced performers. You'll hear in the episode, we talk a little bit about kind of what she has to offer and what her approach is to all of that. So without further ado, let's get right into Miss Kellita. All right, ladies and gents, I am really, really excited just from our pre-show chat and everything I know about her. I am so excited to bring her wisdom and her journey and her stories to you. So hello, Kellita. How are you doing today?
Oh, Velvet. I'm just grinning ear to ear.
Yay. That's what I love to hear. Excellent. Like I said, I'm so excited. I want to jump ahead, but we're going to start, we're going to ease everybody into this just a little bit. We'll start at the very beginning. It's a good place to start. What do you have going on right now that you're really, really excited about?
Ooh, well, right now, we're just about 10 days out from 2 cabaret evenings, Burlesque from the Inside Out, which are the culmination of 2 of the Showgirl Awakening signature programs for burlesque solos and ensemble showgirl dance. And I just came last night from the preparation with the soloists, and oh my God, on a self-expression, on an art and crafting level, yay. This is what my 48 years have been preparing me for. Gosh, I would like to just zoom back and speak to my, let's say, my 24-year-old Kellita and say, listen, hun, it's going to be okay. I just want to fast forward you ahead to see what all the intense, here, we're kind of jump, even this question, look at how quickly we get to the deep depths, but of this intense hiding that you feel, this intense, I have to cut off about 79% of who I am just to be, just to pass, just to be able to show up in the world and be, that they're actually, over the course, and we'll talk something of how I went from there to here, and burlesque has had an enormous role to play in me. I'm now probably living into about 212% of myself, and it's only rising, and it really is delicious, and catalyzing that and providing a space for women to shed. I love the title of your podcast, for women to strip down, because goodness, the clothes is the least important thing of what's getting stripped down. It's like, that's gravy. It's the rest.
Absolutely.
So anyway, so I love that work, and that's happening. And right after that, day after that, I'm getting on a plane and heading to Europe for a 6-week Showgirl Awakening tour, teaching and performing in 7 or 8 cities. That's what's up right now.
This is a very exciting spring for you then. Lots of big things going on.
Yes. Spring is a really probably one of the most beautiful times, and just it's an awakening time.
Well, I was just going to say, it fits in so well with kind of your work that you do and everything. It really is about awakening, and I've found the same. It's bizarre how I don't know if it's life or the universe or God, if you believe, or whatever it is, kind of. The springtime tends to be not just in nature, but really for all of us, this time of kind of new beginnings.
Oh yeah.
We could talk so much more about it, and I'm sure we'll get into more of this, but let's back up a little bit. I gave our listeners just a little intro in your bio, kind of a little bit about your background, but tell us about your journey, something that goes a little deeper than what we can read on your website. When and how did you really know that burlesque was right for you?
Okay, I'm gonna hop on my quantum fast train here.
Sure, great. I love that one.
To take you from. It actually, I do want to, have a quick tour as a little wee one. I'm not very tall now, 5.5 feet, but when I was even more wee, as in single digits, I just, my connection to dance was what I did just to express my joy, like many little children. I danced for the love of it. And I was lucky enough to have classes offered, but I turned them down. And my mom was not she wasn't a mom that you have to take dance class. It was like, would you like to? And I said, no, because I was so happy just doing it on my own. And it was, so that I wasn't a start ballet at 4-year-old or in, I lived in a very rural place, and we didn't have the place that had the tap, modern, and jazz. There were some creative movement classes and a few other things, but basically I turned them all down. And it wasn't until I hit junior high and my world collapsed in. We could, could go a whole other tale, but, sex, drugs, rock and roll hit me, when I barely was double digits, and I was a super sensitive orchid little flower, and it just about did me in. I lost that, that connection to myself that dance always accentuated, but it was just there, and just dance took me to a place of turning the lights on really loud on what was already a really strong, my trust in myself, my knowing of what I want to wear and what I want to eat and who I want to hang out with as a little child was really, really strong. And then almost with one fell swoop, it was like someone just took a big scissor and cut my cord to myself. In junior high, then, I didn't feel very connected to my family, to my parents, to, I'd had more of a connection to God too, in how I understood him, her, it, that to be. And all of a sudden, all those connections were gone. And something in me, it's like my spirit fled for the hills, and I was left with this very empty body. I could hear the little whisper from my spirit that was hanging out, waiting for me far, far away in the forest, in the hills, saying, dance. So I did. I asked for classes. I asked my mom. I had a friend who was taking ballet, and I said, can I do that? I was lucky enough to have the answer of yes, you can. And so I went and I started with ballet. But first of all, many of us know about ballet divorces. I went on the ballet train from about 14 to 17. I did it from a place of intense self-loathing.
Oh no.
So, absolutely. I found the most sadistic teachers. There's a history in ballet of intensity and perfectionism coming from the teacher down to the child. And I did find those teachers, and I was using my body, which was good, but it was from a place of only looking at what wasn't working and how I was falling short and how I couldn't do the splits and how I couldn't do the pirouettes. And so there was no sense of celebration in what was working. So come 17, I had a ballet divorce, and I had to walk away. And I thought that dance was dead because I had such little tiny tunnel vision that was what dance was to me at that time. Fast forward to Austrian boyfriend who was visiting at my college, who was taking modern dance. So a few years later, he opened my eyes to this other dance world. And I had a long love affair, but really love affair is too loving, actually. I had a long affair with modern dance, but we were never a good fit. There was always, at my face, my joy popped out of my face. The movements, at least in who I was learning from, were more of contractions, and there was the stories we were telling. Just none of it was a match. The only match was that I was moving, and that brought me several degrees closer to myself, who still lived in the faraway hills. But there's this conversation that my best girlfriend to this day asked me, and she was a professional modern dancer at this time. And at this point, I'm in my late 20s by now. And we're sitting in her old little beat up car outside the post office and saying, Shari, what's going on here? This modern dance thing isn't working. She completely agreed with me, but I knew this was my ticket to coming home. I was not back in my body, not at all yet. And so she asked me this amazing question, which I would ask anyone who's wondering about if movement is something that calls you back to yourself. Ask yourself this question: how do you naturally move? She asked me that. No one had ever asked me that in my years of dance experience. How do you naturally move? I said, well, I pitter my feet. There is literally a quick little pitter, which is wonderful for blender butt, which is this wonderful shimmy shaking butt experience. So I pitter my feet. That was something I'd always done it out of excitement, this was a movement that was completely intrinsic to my body and being. So that, and then I thought, I do gestures with my hands and shapes and isolations. I always love just moving, like, just move that part of the body, just move that part of the body. And my face lights up. So we thought about, okay, all those things. And it sounded like, well, probably a folkloric dance of some kind. And the first one that I went to on this actual official research project was a Brazilian dance class. And it was such a stunning coming home that it was like, okay, it was like the movie went from black and white to color. So the movements of the hips and the shaking of the butt and the glorious radiant extension of the arms and opening of the chest and the victory Showgirl V, all of these pieces were, what are you talking about? We get this. This is not just movement that's relegated to a back portion of my head. No. Had this dance been around me? Yes, it had. Had I seen it as possible for me? No. I don't know if that story, have you heard the story about the 3 ships?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So the Native Americans saw those 3 Columbus ships coming, but I don't know if this is not a true story. They saw the ships coming, but they couldn't see them because they'd never seen a ship like that.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah.
So I use it as a metaphor.
Interesting.
I don't know if this is true, but it's like, I couldn't before that time see that kind of course I'd seen joyful dance somewhere, but I couldn't register it until I was ready. And that day I was ready to have it. And then, I dove into Brazilian dance, ended up dancing with several Brazilian dance companies. So I found myself having found this intense love for this way of moving my body, and not just for me alone, but of sharing it publicly. And I had always also, I grew up in an artist village, and I had really been, it had been so indoctrinated in me to don't become an artist, don't become an artist, don't become an artist. Oh. Because there were so many starving artists all around us. There was all these gorgeous people, but there was, it wasn't a place that you could live well with that. So my parents were just so concerned that I would be a starving artist. So I didn't even let myself entertain the possibility of being a professional artist until I was dancing with Brazilian dance companies, and we were doing gigs, and I could say, hey, there's a way I can do what I love and have it be my work. So that opened up that animal for me and that possibility. And that's when I started Hot Pink Feathers, right then and there in 2000, a Brazilian inspired dance company. Velvet, do you want to say something? I feel like I'm rolling.
No, I love it. I am loving it. I'm like going on your journey with you. I feel like I am, 12-year-old Kellita, or I was, going through this, because I think you're right. I think a lot of us have gone through, things like this where we're limited to what we know, just like the Native Americans in the ships, we're limited to what we think is possible, and if you
can't even see something else that might be living next door.
Exactly. And you don't even know, when you grow up, you think this is what dance is. And yes, there's other things out there, but no, this is what dance could be. And if that's not it, then I must not be a dancer. I mean, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but that's kind of,
it was
that's interesting. And so you started this new, this Hot Pink Feathers, and was that already, did you have burlesque already inside of that as well?
What a good question. What I knew is that I wasn't interested in creating a folkloric troupe. There were plenty of those, and all I knew is I'm following my muse here. I'm quite inspired by these movements and by this music, but I'm going to let the folkloric troupes handle that, and we're going to go where the muse calls with this. So I knew that we only sort of fit in the Brazilian dance company world. And it was troupe dance at first, with little breakout solos, but mostly troupe dance. The choreographies felt very much like old, MGM movies, but this is without me having watched a bunch. This is like, I believe is too strong a word. I think believe is a word we should almost erase, but it makes sense to me. I entertain the possibility that through my family line and that I inherited some physical knowing that didn't come through my conscious learning in this lifetime about forms of dance from other times and places. Because nobody taught me how to do the kind of choreography that was coming out of me. And it was in retrospect looking at seeing, oh my God, this is so much like that. So somebody was tipping me off on some level of how to embody this old time showgirl. So our choreographers were like that, and we started in very little tiny clothes, but we didn't remove things until fast forward 9 months, 6 to 9 months after I started Hot Pink Feathers. How to say this fast? It's just such a fun story. I can't stand it.
Oh, so, no, tell me. Go for it.
So there we are. We had rehearsed in a building. I was a real homebody at this point. So when I was not performing myself, I didn't go out. I didn't know San Francisco nightlife. There was new burlesque already seeded and happening, but I didn't know anything about it because I didn't see it. So there were flyers left outside the studio, and they were gorgeous flyers. They were made by Baby Doe of the Devilettes and Teaserama. And God, I don't even think I had a computer yet, but I got on somebody else's computer because of this amazing flyer. And I looked at the website for the first Teaserama, which happened in New Orleans, May of 2001. And this was the first international gathering festival convention of the new burlesque movement. And I looked at these headshots and bios of these men and women who were coming together for this festival, and my jaw dropped. What? It was Dirty Martini and Julie Atlas Muse and Tigger, and from San Francisco, Kitten on the Keys, and all of these amazing performers. And I knew I had to go there. So I had enough. At that point, Southwest did flight segments. I had enough flight segments to fly to New Orleans. And I just flew my little self to New Orleans. And I attended this event, and it was such a crazy coming home. I knew with Hot Pink Feathers that it was going towards, and I had an interest in some extra edge. But when I didn't know what that could be. So I went to check out a local strip club to see what does it feel like in there. So I just went to one and I sat in the room, and the feeling was of people hiding. That was the feeling I had in this particular place. Not that it is the feeling everywhere, but in that club that I went to, the people sitting next to me felt very hiding. There were some beautiful dancers, but I didn't get their deep joy and radiance and deep pleasure in themselves coming out. There was more of a shroudedness. And when I was there at Teaserama, everyone in the audience, everyone on stage was at least 212% themselves. Yes. Their absolute fullest best self. Their cells were on fire, magnified. And it was I'm sure there could have been one or two people who were having something other feeling, but most of us in there were just turned on and alive. Everyone in the house. So I knew, okay,
This is it.
And it was clearly a broad enough range. It wasn't like it was just one little narrow style. There was such a range of groups and soloists and duos doing things that went everywhere from what we now, many people, you could have a whole podcast on what is classic burlesque or not. It's a big topic, but everywhere from quite strong performance art pieces all the way to quite classic and everywhere in between. And so this was clearly home and allowed me the license of, okay, we can start taking off some of these little tiny costumes.
Ooh, imagine that. We'll go from little to none or even littler.
Yes. And let me tell you, do you want to know where and how I did my first public striptease? I kid you not. This could never happen today. Ever, ever, ever. It was at Exotic World competing for the crown. I had never done a public striptease anywhere in my life.
That was your first
That
one?
was it. They didn't require a video. I just called I called Dixie, or I actually have a handwritten letter from Dixie saying, come on down, gal, you can join us. I'm totally serious. And pardon me, I'm not an actress, so if I did the accent wrong, but she has a darling, sweet voice. And she was totally welcoming, like she was inviting me over for a potluck. That was the tone.
That is amazing, because I love that. And I love how, I mean, don't get me wrong. I adore how our industry is growing and there's more opportunities and there's all of that. But it does start to, I mean, I wasn't involved back then, so I can't really speak from experience, but just hearing that kind of a story, I mean, it is kind of a shame that we're losing things like that, that we're losing just that opportunity for, newcomers. We were just having a discussion in the Burlesque Big Sister, Big Brother Facebook group about, what do you still consider a newcomer, and how do you, and how producers kind of judge you, even if you're not a newcomer, but you haven't performed there or you haven't, performed in that city or things like that. And so I don't know, just you speaking of that kind of makes me think it is a bit of a shame that we lose some of that, even though what we're gaining is wonderful.
Yes,
in its place.
It's all good. It's the nature of any growing. I actually wanted to use this word, and I question myself for a minute. Any growing organization, even though we are not like one professional organization, we are one big organism with
an organism.
We're an organism.
Almost, yeah.
Thank you. I like that.
Yeah, I like that.
We are a big organism, and when organisms grow, they necessarily do feel a little more institutional.
Absolutely.
It's the way it's the way of things. It's the way of any flow, any natural arc of something. And then the art comes in, I think, to not get sidetracked, but I feel like it's important to mention that it happens with any business that gets really big. If there isn't community developed in small, tactile, real ways on small scale, the whole thing will go to shit.
Girl, if I could snap, I would snapping like you go, girl. You talk about snaps to that.
Yeah, it comes in. Oh gosh, we could go off on how what you said of newcomers, and then how to integrate people when we're such fierce independents. Good grief. Yes. I mean, could you find a group of people in a profession is almost too strong a word, because the truth is, I would say that on just a level of who's being supported by their art, there are more hobbyists than there are professionals in our world, because it's not set up with these $10 shows. I mean, come on. Are you kidding me?
I would agree with that. What? I just did a poll about, actually in the same Facebook group, we were just discussing kind of which status you are, like how do you define yourself, and very few can support themselves. And if you do support yourself, it almost necessitates the addition of classes and teaching and other things in addition. You can't, it's so difficult to just be a performer.
Because it would, I feel like I'll say this, and then it's not the angle that I focus on the most. But I really do believe that this would come from, I've seen it happen I've seen these conversations happen with other performing groups like belly dancers, where it's where the whole community together says, we as a unit are going to value this differently. And it can't be that half of the city is having $25 shows and half of the city is having $10 shows. I'm just using that as an example. It kind of all together, I feel this, oh, this is live performance. Huh.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Would the same levels of freedoms be enjoyed by everyone if it was set up for that? That's where we're actually sort of looking at like the building of the whole burlesque democratic world, which is funny. I would never imagine we would have gone to this topic here, but
me either. But I love it.
and this has to do with the chapter 2, because I paused on the journey story, but
go back there.
And it relates very much to this, that one of in my experience, one of the largest gifts that both performing and teaching showgirl and burlesque dance, one of the largest gifts that I've experienced personally and seen happen in my students is it's not just the kind of satisfaction of yay, like I made it to the stage and I felt okay and even wonderful having this experience, but that the level of turned on and the level of connecting to parts of self that have been absolutely relegated to the basement and the closet, just not seen the light of day, getting to come out in not just the stage experience, but the whole journey to the stage experience is bleeding out into the rest of life and showing up in primary relationships, in the workplace, in family relationships. And this, it's a true awakening. I mean, what 5 years ago, I got it. I got it in a big way. If you look at yourself, like imagine stage is out in front of you and you're doing all the things to get ready. You're taking the classes and you're getting your costume ready and your concept and you're practicing and you're receiving feedback from others and you're really you're reaching into new places of yourself. And then the destination is the stage, and you get there and there you are, and you're ahead of yourself. You're on the stage and you have this experience where something clicks for you in that moment, when you are not only, opening up and growing. It's almost like, think of it. Oh, this is the perfect analogy of an animal. Think of a kind of a scared dog. Okay. Who's getting used to like, it's in front of us. It's yipping. That dog is a metaphor for our own animal self that we've relegated to the basement. We have culturally become so unkind to our animal selves. And by animal self, I mean the part of us that senses and that tells the truth and that yips when it's afraid or when it's angry or when it's scared. And we have shoved cotton, or if not a full-on gag, in the mouths of our animal selves, to the devastation of, look at our culture.
Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
we have little pockets. Like here, we're sitting around a campfire together right now, and we're speaking the truth. And there are little pockets of these all over, and bless us all who are having these conversations and who are bringing it out, because this is what, I'm going to use big fat words again, this will save our world.
Well, but it's interesting. It's so true. I'm 100% on board with you. And it's so interesting that you're talking about this, because you use different terminology, but these campfire talks, they're coming up more and more in different parts of my life. I'm hearing about these things from different places more than I did 5 years ago, and I think that's really significant. And I think you're right. I think this is maybe on the upswing, depending on how we put it, because these concepts that maybe could be considered like the truth, with a capital T or whatever you want to call it. Like they're coming up more. I'm hearing them from all these different sectors.
And thank you. And I'm so happy for that reflection. May it continue. I'm noticing it too.
Yeah.
And it comes back to me really basic things. Like this is a question, just from last night. Like I ask in the act creation process, first question after someone has shown what they're working on or where they are with their act, before anyone else gets to talk, I ask the person, that person speaks first, right, when they're done. And I guide them, how did that feel? Not what did you think about it? How did it feel to do that? I have to say, still, even with people really smart people, very hard to pay attention and to actually speak to how did it feel. We're so incredibly trained to speak what we've thought about it. Did we think we did a good job?
Yes.
Did we remember what we wanted to? No, I mean, how did it feel in your fingers, in your nipples, in your pussy, in your toes? How did it feel? And does that mean I'm interested in someone just getting up and doing whatever the fuck they want to do and calling that burlesque? No, I'm not. I fundamentally, deeply, and from my experience, notice that as someone's true self-expression of their pleasure rises, that their ability to craft high art rises in tandem. They come together. They're not at the expense of each other, which I had gotten that impression earlier in my artist life, that from some camps of, you kind of have to choose whether you're going to feel really self-expressed or whether you're going to produce really high and good art. And I say bullshit. The way that I practice and the way that I cultivate my own art and catalyze other folks to do, they rise in tandem. And I really enjoy mixed classes. I enjoy teaching classes where there are absolute brand new performers who've never performed before and are even 50 or 60 years old. And then folks who've been trained 20, 30 years in professional performing. Because guess what? This is the truth. It's no easier. And in some ways, there are more impediments for the highly, highly trained professional performers to access their authentic pleasure and not be playing to what a director or a playwright or somebody else has expected, because they're so trained.
Sure, it's like unlearning what you've learned.
There's a big fat unlearning to go on there. Does that mean they can't do spectacular performance? Not at all. Does it mean they have maybe a couple of more things to unlearn before they can have the highest pleasure? It does.
And I know that's something, I mean, personally that I've been struggling with over the last year, maybe even more. I don't know when exactly it started, is, kind of tapping into that inner feeling, not just with my performance journey, but in my life in general.
Yes.
This year has been, I had a rough start to the year, as most of my listeners know, because I took a little hiatus from the podcast.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of kind of decisions that have needed to be made. And I'm having trouble tapping into that my animal self, as you put it, like that intuition, my pleasure. I've been, I've had 30 years on,
Happy birthday.
Well, thank you.
Saturn return. Here you are.
Oh, that's it. Well, that's it. 100%. I just discovered what this is. And a friend of ours and I were talking about it. And so I've been having to make all these decisions, and I've been, had 30 years of making decisions with my head of, weighing the pros and the cons and doing what people advise me to do and all of that. And I am finding it almost impossible to figure out what is my inner voice or my animal self or whatever, and what is, my ego, so to speak. Yeah. So anyway, it's an interesting journey, and especially when we relate it to our performance careers as well.
I find that the performance careers, mirror and highlight anything that's happening in your whole life. And it's a wonderful place to work it on out.
That is true. That is true.
And you for entertaining all these questions with such beautiful awareness and curiosity.
Well, that's what it is. I mean, I'm so curious, if I think if we had, and I'll be honest, if we had been talking about this kind of thing a few years ago, I think there's a part of me that wasn't ready to hear it yet. I was always very, very practical. I was very, scientific, a bit cynical, to be honest, and all this talk of, egos and intuitions and all of that, I kind of scoffed at it. But again, that I've been hearing these things from so many areas in my life, not just, some of my friends that are a little more quote foo-foo, but also from, these business podcasts that I listen to, and these highly respected people are coming out with these same things. Brene Brown has changed my life.
So happy for bridge folks like that. So she's really bridging Brene. Oh, she's bridging science and we'll kind of call it the new science, it's all new science, but that's science of our current, we spoke of organizations or organisms, science as we have come to know it, which we act like is some really, really old thing when it's maybe 200 years old in its current form how we see it. But in any case, that the science that we so deeply laud in our culture is catching up to the quantum physics folks and,
absolutely. These things are really intertwining, and it's fascinating. I think we're living in a really, really interesting time. I do.
And it's moving very quickly. And where we're out of sync with ourselves is hurting more quicker. Which in a way you could say, yay, the danger of, I'll use another metaphor like leprosy. Leprosy happens when people can't feel their extremities. So what happens if you're cutting tomatoes and you can't feel your finger? You cut your finger off and you don't even know it. So the pain that we might feel right now from whatever it is, being misunderstood, being unexpressed, being bound, being deer in headlights. So I think there's a real beauty in when it's no longer a dull ache, because we can live with a dull ache for a really, really long time. And the point of any kind of pain, physical, emotional, spiritual pain, is letting us know something wants to shift. It's not saying the wisdom of pain isn't you're supposed to continue to feel bad. It's hurting to tell you that something wants to change. And can it change? Yes. Yes, it can change.
I love that's a really interesting. I mean, I'm going to have to, when I go back and edit this, I'm going to have to probably take that part, like not take it out, but take it for myself and make it a soundbite. Because I think I need to really percolate on those things. Because, and there is, and I can't remember it off the top of my head, there is a Tim Ferriss quote that had something along the lines of, the greatest, this is not it at all, but something along the lines saying that the enemy for change is like being comfortable or it being just okay.
Oh yeah.
And I'll put that in the show notes page for this episode, whatever, when I find the quote, what it is, but it's something along those lines. Like, we can put up with anything if it's just okay. Yeah. But it's when that pain gets sharper. And so you're right. Maybe it is kind of a blessing in disguise.
By all means it is.
We're feeling it more acutely.
Yes. So that it's no longer something that can be tolerated. And then by golly, going to change it. But then, this is the part that really, here, bit of this feels so relevant and important too. So, in burlesque, where if this term of sort of divine feminine, even if you don't, I'm speaking to everyone now, even if you don't believe you don't have a context that involves divine feminine, suspend your belief template for a moment and just imagine that it was useful for an exercise.
Sure, okay.
And imagine
you can do anything for exercise.
Yes, just do an exercise. So just taking these, it's not about man woman. It's just like the yin yang symbol. It's the archetype of the feminine, the archetype of the masculine, and so there's a whole bunch of aspects of burlesque that invite what has been, suppressed divine feminine for several millennia. And in the sensuality of the movement, in the thin fourth wall that we have in burlesque that allows us to be penetrated by the audience and allows us to penetrate them. I use this explicit word really, really on purpose. I love, Tigger has a great call to action, which is, I've heard him say pre-show and other people have echoed it, and it's fuck them in the heart. And this is so we're there to both to penetrate, which is actually very masculine it's an active and it goes out just to send ourselves out to them, and we're there to be exquisitely receptive. What fuels us when we're in traditional theater, you're not supposed to make a lot of noise. You're supposed to just be quiet and just take it in kind of like it was live TV in front of you. Not in burlesque. In burlesque, where it's the most alive is when the audience is really participating and they're sending out and we're taking in what they're sharing with us. And it's that receptivity. Our receptive muscles, which are feminine muscles, have become terribly weak. Terribly, terribly weak. We deflect compliments. We ignore our strengths. But we both express and experience, and they're both equally incredibly important, divine feminine and divine masculine. We need it for everything. If we were all just divine feminine, we cannot live just with the feminine. We'd be butter on the floor. There's no form there whatsoever. We do need the form and the stance of the divine masculine in its healthy form, not in its squish down everything that's not.
Exactly.
Yeah, but we need them both. And when they're both dancing together, just the archetypal elements of divine masculine as form, as action, as assertion, and divine feminine of flow and reception and magnetism. When they dance together, that is orgasm. Orgasm is not just the climax of a specific sexual experience. It is this totally alive tingle in every part of your body and every part of creation. And that's what burlesque can be.
You're so right. If you could see me, I'm just nodding vigorously right now. Like I am just so, I think you're so right. And it's so important to know that we have both. I think the words masculine and feminine get such a bad rap because they're linked in with male and or men and women, but that's not what it is. As you said, it's yin and yang and we have them both. We have them both. And it's a matter of, of finding that balance. And when the femininity has been repressed in some situations, I was actually reading a really interesting article the other day about rape culture, and the opposite of that would be a nurturance culture.
Oh, I read that too online.
Did
somewhere.
you?
Yes.
It was fabulous. Really long, but fabulous article. It was really interesting. And I posted it on Facebook like, hey, let's start the conversation. Of course, nobody continued the conversation, but whatever.
I think in our short attention span, that article was longer than most people can handle. But
that's very true. But but no, I could go on and on with this with you. Honestly, we're going to have to do some more, podcast episodes later on talking about energy things, because I really love, and I mentioned this to you in the pre-show chat, Jess Lively over at the Lively Show. which is another podcast I listen to, and she's been really into her last few months and everything. And she said this, she's like, I'm really interested in feminine energy right now. And I think that what you're saying is really resonating with some of the things that she's been kind of exploring and we've been exploring together. So let's I do want to make sure we get some of the other questions in. So I'd love to talk a little bit, as we've talked about your journey. And I always like on our podcast talk about kind of the reality of burlesque and not just, the beautiful amazingness we see on stage or even backstage, even though it's a little more raw, but the reality of it, as I always say, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Yeah. So can you tell us about, some of your best and worst moments, whether it's about producers, malfunctions, kind of internal stuff, external stuff, whatever it is?
Yes, I can. And this has been cooking in me, and I've actually been wanting to blog about it, and this may spur me. And it's actually an experience from some time ago, but I have to say that I rarely have a bad stage experience. It's so, even if someone, introduces me strangely, or if I have a costume malfunction, my experience of being on stage has been highly consistently life-giving. It's been from, sometimes just okay, but from okay to really this closer to orgasm state. But the places for me that have felt the pinchiest is the receiving side. Is the receiving side, which somehow, this is why we talked about learning from, like, on stage, I know how to do the receiving. I really, really do. It's almost like this place of, like, my fear of actually being nourished by someone's reflection to me of what being in my presence does for them, or anything that I've given, like actually just receiving, and like it's food, like when someone has a compliment, to take it and eat the food rather than say no thank you and put it in the trash or give it to someone else. On stage, I'm eating that food. I'm like gobbling it. I'm like, give me another steak, or muffin or berry or whatever the food is, and I'm gobbling it down and it's dripping down my face. And then off stage, and I've become incredibly better, because the vignette I'm going to speak to is from quite a long time ago, 13 or 14 years ago. But it stuck with me because it was so stunning. I was at a show in Denver, and oh no, I feel afraid to say it right now too. But this is okay. Good God, this speaks to. I'm not fully through this one yet.
It happened. Remember Brene Brown's vulnerability? If we are all here to support you. We love hearing it, because there feels like there's a big brag in it, and but my feeling tone from the whole thing. The whole point was I couldn't go to accepting the brag place. Oh, okay. So this was a show, and it was the XXXmas show, and this is okay. Good grief. It's actually not. Holy shit. I'm just laughing. I am laughing at my backpedaling right now. I'm laughing at it. This was a show that was headlined by Catherine Delish and Dita Von Teese. And this was in a beautiful theater, the Gothic Theater. And there were a few of us who were flown out from San Francisco, Kitten on the Keys and me and Margot Montmartre, who was a cantankerous lolly. We three were there, and then the rest, I believe, were the amazing performers native to Denver. So this is another statement from early in the New Burlesque. I got to do 3 solos that night. Does this ever happen? Even if someone's headlining a festival? No, nobody gets to do 3 solos. Nobody. So it was like, wow. And afterwards, in the lobby, there was a man, I don't know, someone who saw the show, and Dita was there signing. She had just been on the Playboy in that beautiful edition where she's in the black corset December edition of Playboy in 2003 or whenever that year was. And this man, within earshot of Dita, who, was iconic at that point, is it more iconic still, but he said out loud to me, I don't even remember the words, but it was praise. It was praise to the point of like that I should have been headlining the show. And that, first of all, it scared the shit out of me, because there's Dita who did headline the show with earshot, but I couldn't take
I couldn't even hear it from him. Do you know what I mean? It's like I had a wall outside. It's like I had a skin that couldn't, I couldn't eat the food that he was giving me. Couldn't do it. Couldn't receive that. And it made me, for years, like in burlesque, there's a media. I would literally hide when there was media. There would be if there was a gaggle of 6 or 7 performers, and then at the goat farm, they had, Vogue Italy, or, there were people who had discovered, even though it was early. I pulled to the back all those times. There was something that was not, and I now consider that, I look at the archetypes, which I don't know if we'll have a chance to look at, but the archetype of the diva scared the shit out of me. The archetype of the diva who the diva, and I'm speaking of this not as a person, but the diva as the archetype. She has the comfort and the assurance to take up her space and isn't worrying. She's not even thinking about how it relates to anyone else. It's not in reference to anyone else. It's not against anyone else. It's not for anyone else. It is simply, I am here. Like a woman who deeply embodies the energy of the diva, Grace Jones. The diva.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not
diva.
about anyone else. It is about her. And it's not her conquering the world or over anyone. She's just so herself that there's the opposite of editing. Do you know what I mean? Whatever is but again, it's not that I'm pushing it on. There's nothing, it's just not in relation to anything else. And it's taken me all these years I'm just now coming to the place of letting myself take up all the space that my person wants to take up and not have it be about my relationship to others. It's just me being. Everyone has everyone's relating to the archetype of the diva on some level. May I speak of a couple of the other archetypes? So
yes, please. This is actually, I was really interested to hear more about this.
So I've been playing with about 9 archetypes in Showgirl Awakening, which Showgirl Awakening is the name of the greater work of what I've spoke of earlier, of looking at the stage, and you turn around from the stage and go, oh, how can I use all of this in my whole life? That's Showgirl Awakening. And so a couple of the others that I realize have been go-tos for me. And basically, we all want access to all of them. They're all latent in everyone, and they all have their uses. In men, in women, everybody. And another word just about the archetypes. Most of these archetypes have been maligned. And we've learned about them in shadow forms and in not fully developed forms and kind of caricature. We know of them as caricatures. And I'm all about, hey, there's a deep richness here. These do not need to remain caricatures. They want full development. The diva wants to show up all over the place in our lives. We want her at our fingertips. But the others that I'm much more comfortable with, and there's 3 of them that I have, they're kind of my usual cocktail. The ingenue, which is kind of innocent and this is true. These are parts of me that I love, and I would never want to not have them. But has the ingenue eclipsed the diva for me? Oh, yeah. The second is the shimmy shaker. Would I ever want to lose her? No. Good God. One of the main physical movements in burlesque and the most core movement, perhaps, of Showgirl Awakening, there's a whole movement cadre, is the shimmy. For literally shaking off all that is old and no longer serves, and for magnifying our radiance. So the shimmy shaking, absolutely. But have I had the shimmy shaker, eclipse, for example, the diva? Oh, yeah. And the third is the amuser, which is another name for the trickster. And so that, the mischief and I have a little secret. Those 3, that's my typical cocktail. The amuser, the shimmy shaker, and the ingenue. Who I'm welcoming more and more is the diva. This one we just spoke of. I dare say that most women I know could use an extra dose of the diva, and to get to know her as she lives in them.
I think as females, we've had so much, again, it's come up in a lot of different articles and things about so much of, making us making us need to be smaller, right? To physically take up less space. We cross our legs. I'm crossing my legs right now. We cross our legs. We are small. There's man's spewing. Is that what it's, no, what it's called? Something where they like take up all this space on the metro.
Yeah.
What is that called? I don't know.
Sprawling, maybe?
Sprawling. That could be the word.
Yeah.
Started with an S, I think.
Yeah.
You know, and we take up small, and then in our vocals, in our speaking as well, and everything. And so I think you're absolutely right that the diva is one that a lot of us, you know, we all have, of course. Some of us have it in great quantities, and we all look at those, you know, these women that we call divas, you know?
Yeah.
But a lot of us feel like we don't have that. But you're probably right. We all have it and need to get in touch with it inside of ourselves.
It's on our menu. It just might be blacked out or whited out or, you know, have been mostly erased, but we can rewrite it in and also reframe where we've misunderstood it.
Ooh.
Like I understood it as it being against someone. Yeah, I interpret it as I can't be in my full divahood and be in community. And that's not so. I actually can't even fully be in community if I don't have access to all my parts, because I can't share all my parts if I don't have access to them.
I love that. So that's some of the work that you do then in the show. What were the other ones? So you have the diva,
the ingenue, the shimmy shaker, the amuser, the siren. The siren who, you know, magnetizing. The siren movements that go with the siren, you know, circling of the hips. So she's quite high on the feminine and masculine, that scale. Right. Siren is very much about, I'm not coming to you. I am hypnotizing you to come to me. And who else? The muse who is so deeply, comfortable, and she's also high on the feminine scale. Of accepting the gaze, being nourished by it, and really not threatened at all. And then, I tell you, recently at a workshop, this one caused a stir. This next one I'm going to mention caused the most like heated reaction from people, and it's the bombshell. And what we talked about there was because the bombshell in our understanding has been so defined by how she looks. The look piece has been so co-opted by, I mean, you know, look at your average it's changing. I know that it is. We're in the process of it changing, but a very, very specific body type, which is not the healthy body type of very few humans walking the planet. And that's been the look, and you know, other pieces of, you know, the look, and whatever it is, you know, if it were earmarked as, it's just it being earmarked as a look. We are not a look. So the bombshell made a lot of people crazy, but the bombshell is embracing your look because your look is perfect. It's you.
So it does.
It's not defined by your pounds or your hair color or the dimensions in your face. It's being alive in your look. And
interesting. So it still revolves kind of around looks, but it's more about not about what society says is the bombshell look, but is whatever your look is.
It's you embodying. So this is the whole piece. We actually in the work with the archetypes, we use constellation, a form of constellations. It's a way of physically representing something. So I actually will tuck a little piece of paper. I give it to someone, and then they tuck it without them knowing what's on it. And when we're doing movement exercises, they're actually rotating through the different archetypes, not knowing what's on the paper, because the field knows what's on the paper. So they're actually accessing, doing their movement with a different archetype. We completely bypass the thinking mind, is what I'm saying, in the explorations with this. So someone is actually, they're finding out what the bombshell feels like to them. So it's not, we're so used to learning in a context of, I'm going to tell you what this means, and now I want you to play with what I told you it means. We're actually doing extremely experiential experiments that are inspired by systemic constellations work. Yeah.
You know, in the spirit, you know, in the spirit of speaking my truth and all of that, that sounds absolutely terrifying to me. And there is a part of me that is actually really glad that I'm not going to be in Paris for your workshop this next month. And I know that sounds horrible, and I don't mean it the way it sounds, but this part of me that's terrified to do that. There's also a part of me that knows how good it would be for me and that really needs that. But there's this, you know, this ego part of me that's like, oh, thank God that's... Does that make sense? I don't mean that in a negative way.
But I do get it. But it's also fun. It's also
and
fun.
fun.
It's also fun.
Well, good. I love that, and I'm really interested to find out more. And I know you mentioned kind of creating, like you have some things in the works with these archetypes that might be come out later on. So I'll be very interested to see, more of that, basically.
Yes, me too.
It's percolating. Do you have anybody specific that that really inspires you from, burlesque's history, or who do you find to be your biggest kind of the queens?
Can I give one who is not with us and one who's with us?
Absolutely, as you like.
So for who is with us is Judith Stein, Grand Beaver of Canada, and I both had the pleasure of being slain by her stage performance, and love how she marries the comic and the sexy. Yeah. Excellent. There's so much personality and mischief and great stage presence and timing and just, so smooth. And for one of our greats who has gone on, Josephine Baker, both on and off stage, such a delightful, brilliant light. And
absolutely. An inspiration. True.
And in just her own knowing how to, I'm not being able to be seen or heard or appreciated here. I'm going across the sea. I'm planting in France. And she shared her spirit in for decades and decades and decades. All her rainbow children adopting, and the tiger, adopting all the children and animals of the world. And I would just love to have lunch with her.
Well, real quickly, I do want to, because I know a lot of people listen to find out kind of some more of the practicals as far as your performance, not just as a teacher, but as a performer. So real quickly, let's talk just about kind of where you find kind of inspiration for your acts and the challenges that you have maybe in creating or as a performer.
I am most often first inspired by music. What I would call for me the character side is more of me tapping into these different archetypes that come out. So it's my frame is a little different. The heightened experience of being me, that she's the central character. Do you know what I mean? So I've never had the intention or the experience that I know is actually incredibly central to some people's work, which is that alter ego. But that has actually, it's never been my angle of there's me here in my day life and then there's my alter ego. What I find is happening, it's of these different aspects of me still coming forward. This is where it's hard for me to talk about. It feels like it's just a semantic thing. It's the highlighting of it's me turned on and turned up, and maybe with a certain aspect let to come out. But it's not, there isn't a character, there's not such a character development piece. Probably because that was just it wasn't ever how I was trained.
Well, no, I fully understand you. And actually I had a Ruby Jones, when she was on the podcast back in December, I believe, in Authenticity Month, she and I talked a lot about kind of personas versus characters. And so that idea of,
tell me more, because I don't know if I know how you guys were.
Yeah, I mean, well, from her perspective, it was really, and you can listen to the interview kind of for more of the details on that. But she was saying about how a persona is kind of who she is, right? Who Ruby Jones is, and who. And probably similar to what you're talking about as far as archetypes, like taking these aspects of yourself and just kind of amplifying them.
Thank you. Then by that term, I would say I work more with persona and less with character. Yes, that's really helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then characters would be more, typically like what you see as far as, putting on a mask. I have my one act where I am the evil queen from Snow White. Yeah. And that's not really me. That's a character that I put on.
Yes.
And I channel that. And so that's a little bit different. So that's really interesting. I am very interested to hear how different people approach that, because some people do have and they have personas that are further removed from their normal self, and this this kind of almost a persona character that they have for all their acts that blend.
It's all in a continuum, and it's worth looking at. It can very much help your act to have some awareness of am I working more with persona here or more with character? I recently was in a villains show.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah, Hubba Hubba Review here, local amazing San Francisco company does a big monthly show, and it's always themed, and it was villains, and I was given permission by Kingfish, the producer, to not be a villain, to just be a showgirl who's kidnapped. because he couldn't imagine me being a villain. And I thought about it after a while. I said, no, I want to be a villain too. So who would be a villain that would kind of be on my map and that already wasn't taken? Because pretty much all there, there's a bunch of other people doing popular villains. Sure. And I decided on Lucy from Peanuts.
Oh my God.
So I have a brand new Lucy act. And really, I have to say, even though I was throwing in some Lucy, there are aspects of her that are close enough to me that they're you could say it's at the edge of persona.
I love that. I love that creativity. I never, ever would have thought of Lucy as a villain. That is beautiful. That's amazing.
So I think that was like maybe hybrid persona character work.
Definitely. Like you said, I mean, it's a continuum, there's these different, and it would be something that I would actually be really interested in delving into a little deeper at some point. I'll add it to my list,
at some point.
My list of things to figure out, and to add in and delve into. So,
love it.
What about when you're backstage at a show? What is one thing that you always have in your burlesque backstage kit?
I feel quite naked without a body covered in glitter. And I don't like the spray is too sticky and yucky. Lotion feels like it can get on things and leave a residue on costumes. So aloe vera, while it doesn't hold it to the same degree that some other fixatives does, it feels good to my skin and it mixes really well. So I do aloe vera and glitter. Yeah.
That's a great little tip there.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I might try that next time. All right. So next up, we have a little section that I like to call Pick Your Poison.
Okay.
And we've gotten into some really deep conversation, and I love it that we've talked about. But these 9 questions, of which you're going to pick one, are a little more superficial. They're just kind of fun and silly. I want to get to know the real Kellita. So why don't you go ahead and pick a number between 1 through 9?
9.
Number 9. All right. What is your go-to karaoke song?
Oh my gosh, Downtown. Or can I give 2?
Yeah, of course.
Downtown or Nobody Does It Better.
Excellent. Are you a fan of doing karaoke? Or?
I do enjoy it. I have had not as much exposure as I would like. I do enjoy it. Yeah.
It is fun. I have to be pretty drunk. I'm not a big, I like to sing a lot. I just get really nervous. But my personal go-to is actually Pussy Control by Prince.
Oh.
Which they do not always have. But I will say, when I put my ghetto hat on, I do some pretty good Prince rapping.
I love it.
I'm pretty fun.
I hope to hear it.
All right. Next up, we do, of course, This or That. And these are just, it's kind of like a quick fire round. So I'm going to give you 2 options and you tell me which one you would prefer.
Okay.
Now, I always say you can interpret these in any way you like. Okay. I'm not going to tell you how to interpret them. Okay?
Yes.
First, Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts?
Starbucks.
City or country?
Ooh. Both. I can't do it.
Love or money?
Love.
Dita Von Teese or Dirty Martini?
Dirty Martini.
A dirty martini or a pint of beer?
Dirty Martini.
Day or night?
Day.
Harry Potter or Star Wars?
Star Wars.
Top or bottom?
Top.
Mountains or ocean?
Ocean.
Classic or neo-burlesque?
Neo.
Peanut butter or jelly?
Can't choose.
I know, both. You gotta have them
both.
Comedy or tragedy?
Comedy.
Marvel or DC?
Oh my gosh. I'm not steeped enough in the 2, but Marvel's jumping out, so I'll say Marvel.
Fair enough. Understand. They've had a lot more, big stuff lately.
Yeah.
So, sleep or sex?
Oh my gosh. I have
know.
to say both. I'm sorry.
Heels or bare feet?
Bare feet.
Even though you're so short, that's cute. Yeah. I just want to put you in my little pocket. I love it. And lastly, Paris or San Francisco?
Oh, damn. Are you?
I know.
No, I just won't. Both.
You're from San Francisco. I know that's where your heart is. I get it.
Oh, those are really fun.
All right. Well, before we say goodbye, I would love to hear, I always ask this because, as we talked about, kind of creating this sense of community with burlesque, and because the internet is such a vast place and there's so much going on in different places, especially as an American, because I have heard of a lot of my British burlesque friends or European talk about some of these groups that they have. How do you typically stay current on burlesque news and the community and everything?
Do you know the Book of Face? But I don't have particular groups. I would like a slightly better way to to stay in touch and stay current. Feels a little disjointed. I think I'm missing things.
I'm 100% with you. And I feel there is that group. I don't know if you're in it. I've mentioned a couple times and it keeps coming up among, especially my UK burlesque friends, which is the burlesque Big Sister, Big Brother.
Oh, I want to discover that.
It's a great one. It's run by Diva Hollywood, who's actually going to be on the podcast later this month. Great. It's really great, but it's just very UK centric, which is no problem. But I don't see quite as many Americans on there, which I would really like to see.
I didn't even know about it. Yeah.
Now, how about videos? Can you give us maybe 2 different videos that we should check out on YouTube, Vimeo, or whatever? One of yours, if you have any.
For the one for me, instead of a dance performance one, I think I'm going to choose a short one-woman show, which is narrative-based. Something related to my development as a showgirl. And for the one, I think they might be both only like related to the greater topic of radiating your inner showgirl rather than actual dance. Yeah.
That's fabulous. Yeah. So we'd love to see whatever you have to give. Of course, I will put those videos along with anything else that we've talked about in this podcast, which has been a lot. I'll put those in the show notes page. It'll be at www.burlesquestrippeddown.com/Kellita, and that's spelled Kellita, Kellita. Yes. Excellent. All right. Well, that about wraps up. I have so enjoyed talking to you. Let us know, because I'm sure that just through this conversation, a lot of our listeners are super intrigued by you and what you have to offer and what you're putting out there in the world. So how can we keep up with you, get in touch with you, learn more, basically?
Come to showgirlawakening.com / right now it's / connect. Say hi to me there. I'm just so interested in having conversations.
Absolutely. And I assume you're all over the social media interwebs as well.
It's, more just because of the nature of pages, it's easier to be in contact. I'm doing my best because especially on this tour, I want to be on the page that I can communicate the best with. And right now it is the personal page, Kellita Maloof, Maloof.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Well, folks, everybody listening, like I said, I'll have all the links so you can get in touch with her on the show notes page. And that'll be once again at burlesquestrippeddown.com/Kellita, Kellita. And you'll be able to find that. You'll be able to find some more details on some of the stuff we've talked about. And I will make sure to update it kind of if and when Kellita lets us know more about, some of the archetypes and things like that. I'll put all that in there as it comes out. So Kellita, thank you so much. I can't even tell you how amazing this interview has been. It's been wonderful to talk with you. I love, kind of the things that you're coming up with and the things that you're working through and where you're kind of taking all of your work. It's amazing.
Thank you. I've loved this time. Let's hang out for a whole week.
I think we should do that. A week-long podcast. Let's do it. No, but I can say I will surely be wanting to talk to you again kind of later on and as we do more themed podcasts and things like that. I'm sure we'll be seeing you again.
Thank you, Velvet. Mwah.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was mind-blowing, right? I told you. I didn't lie to you. It was mind-blowing. It's one of those, I'm getting more and more of these that I just want to keep listening to myself. Not listen to myself, my voice. Nobody likes their own voice, but I want to keep listening to these gems for myself to really get all of the good stuff that I can, all of the good juicy stuff. She had a lot of great notes in there that I will add up into the show notes section for this, the show notes page, for this episode, which of course is at burlesquestrippeddown.com/Kellita, Kellita. As a side note, I did mention a Tim Ferriss quote in the episode that I couldn't really remember, and I did find that for you. The quote is from his book 4 Hour Workweek, and it says, "Pure hell forces action, but anything less can be endured with enough clever rationalization." So very different from what I was trying to say in the episode, but that same idea where, it's only when we get to that really strong feeling of discomfort that we really feel pushed to change things up and to make those changes that we need to in our life on a small scale personally or on a large societal scale. So as I mentioned, as I promised you, we have a little vocal note from a fantastic young at heart lady coming to us from the Distress Dolls. So let's have a listen to what she has to say.
I'm Delicious from Distress Dolls, otherwise known as Grandma. I actually do call myself Nana. Never was I a grandma. Anyway, I just wanted to give a shout out to you, Velvet, and to Coquette and Allie. What a great interview that was. I was actually so proud of you guys. I was so impressed by questions and just the way the interview went. The fact that, Coquette, you talked about the history. Oh, and thank you for bringing up my name. That was so touching. You guys brought me to tears. Once again, it was just a great interview. Made me so proud and reminded me of how thankful and glad I am to be part of such a wonderful troupe. Mwah. Delicious.
Yay! It makes me so happy to hear these great responses and everything. It gives me the happy goosebumps and the happy feelings all over my body, the tingles. So please, if you're enjoying this, don't hesitate to share it with your friends, and then head on over to the website and leave me some of your beautiful voice. If you don't want me to share it on the podcast, I won't, but I would love to get your voice heard by the hundreds, thousands, millions of followers we have. Okay, not quite yet, but we're gonna get there someday. Or if you'd prefer, just send me a quick email. Next week, I'll be sharing a little email with you that I got, which is, again, giving me all the happy feelings. So please don't hesitate to do that. If you're on iTunes, again, I would ask you for a kind of a nice rating and review over there. I'll be back here on Thursday with our first Hot Tips episode of season 2. And then next week, I have the beautiful, the amazing Sapphira, who's going to fire us up with some of her talks as well. And it's going to be amazing next month or so. And I'm sure past that as well. So definitely keep listening, share with your friends, send me some love, and make sure to stay sexy.